the start. So just you'll have noticed already that this session is being recorded. So you will receive a copy of the presentation and a copy of the recording as well. So if I haven't bored you enough in the next hour or so, then you get to watch it all over again if you want to. So that will be sent to you over the next couple of days after this. So my name is Matt. I am a growth advisor at Wenta, and it is my job to do two things. One is to run webinars like this, which hopefully will be informative, or we can hope anyway. And also what I provide is one-to-one based business advice. So if you are currently running a business or thinking about running a business, then I'll give you my contact details at the end that you can book a time to come and see me, and hopefully I can help with you on your journey, whether it's to do with today's topic, which is branding, or any other issue to do with your business. Just a little bit about Wenta before we start. So some of you may not have had contacts with us previously. We are a not-for-profit social enterprise, and we have a couple of different areas of our business. So what you'll see on the slide that's coming up next, hopefully that's changed, is that one of our kind of primary roles is that we have office space in Hertfordshire in the UK, and we rent that office space out, let that space out to generally small businesses. So people that are just looking for one desk. We have an incubator here, so it's a kind of shared office space, or some companies that need space for 20 or 30 people to have a satellite office. We have 4 different centres, and we are therefore effectively a landlord and provide that service. What that allows us to do in terms of our charity is that we take the proceeds from the rents that we charge, and we have a team of people here that can provide free business advice. So where a lot of companies out there in the marketplace, which I'm sure you're experienced, advertise themselves as offering free stuff, with us there's no catch. We're not going to try and sell you something. We're here to try and help you and make your business journey that bit smoother. And our team of business advisors are all people who have learned on the job, so to speak. So we are not textbook based advisors. All of us have had 20 years plus of experience in real business, and what we're hoping to do is take some of that experience that we've got and help you on your journey. So everything free of charge, everything hopefully open and honest, because we have no agenda. So if any of you ever do need any more support on top of these webinars, then please contact us and we will arrange an appointment in your diary, and we can conduct that one-to-one either on Zoom or Teams. Or if you're close to one of our offices, then you can come in and see us at our office and have a meeting face to face. You'll notice that you're all muted and your cameras are all off. That's the style in which we run these webinars to avoid any kind of disruption. But hopefully, I know some of you have seen that already, that you will have a chat functionality there. So if at any point over the next kind of hour or so you have any questions, then please just fire that into the chat, and I will do my best to multitask. Not a strength of mine, as you will find out, but I have the chat box open, so if you have any questions or any concerns, then please stick them in the chat box, and I will, at the right time, when it's a good time for a break, I will hopefully ask your questions, or if it's a complicated question, I'll sort of divert you to contacting me after the webinar so we can have a bit of a longer chat. So the subject today is all about brands. So I'm assuming that most of you who are live on the call now, or for those of you who are watching it, because it's about brands, you are at the early stage of your business. It will be great if you could, while I'm talking over the next couple of minutes, just stick a little bit of a summary in the chat about your business. It gives me context in terms of what you're trying to do. So maybe if you can just in the chat box, just explain what your business is, what stage you're at, and whether there's any particular problems that you have or things that you want to get out of today. So I'll carry on talking. If you can just put that in the chat box, that would be great. As I say, it just gives me a little bit of a context rather than me just sitting here talking to. All I can see is a picture of myself, which even at this time of the morning is not a good thing, I can assure you. So the subject today is brand, and this is a brand new webinar, and this is the first time that we have run this webinar. During this, in about 15 minutes or so, where you'll probably be sitting there thinking, this guy doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. That's probably true. The first one's always a bit of a kind of guinea pig session. So, but hopefully what I'll be able to do is take you through the key elements of what I believe you need to consider to get your branding right. Talk about the difference between a brand and a logo or a name, and go through some key factors that you need to consider when making sure either you've got a brand already and making sure that you've done it in the right way, or if you are at early stage thinking about all the different elements of branding and how you should firmly, I believe, get your branding right at the start before you get into a complex business situation and don't have the time to go back and to revisit your brand. So, as I said before, any questions, just please shout and I'll try and give you an honest answer as we go. I think this will last about an hour or so, but as I said, we've not run this before. So somewhere between an hour and a half should be about right, he says. Okay, so I'm going to make us start on the slides. I'm just going to talk you through, first of all, kind of what we're going to cover today and some of the objectives and what you'll hopefully get out of this session. So 4 key main objectives for this webinar. First of all is to understand, or for you to understand, what's included in a brand and recognize that it's not just a name. There is so much more to it than that. Feel confident in terms of using the right tools, making the right decisions, having the right conversations about establishing all of those key elements of your brand, and be able to make decisions on the values of your business. And I'll explain a little bit more what I mean by values and why I believe they're important as we go along. And be fully kind of aware of what customers are looking for and what they need, and why customers will interact at a much higher level with brands that are clear, brands that have spent some time to make sure that they are in tune with the customer, in tune with the market, and in tune with what you need to do as a business. So hopefully you'll get that out of this today. If not, then please feel free to ask me why, and I'll try and do my best to cover that off. So the different things in which we're going to go through, sorry, I went too far there. The different things that we're going to go through today over the next hour or so is understanding the difference, first of all, between a brand and a logo. And then I will talk you through in a fair amount of detail the key 5 elements of a brand and how we structure it. And they will include the brand position, the brand promise, the brand values, your brand story, so why you're doing this, and the brand associations, which are all the bits connected to a brand, things like logos, colors, and all that sort of stuff. And then talk a little bit about the next steps and the options you have of getting help from Winter on your journey. Or just deal with any questions that you may have as a result of this presentation. So we'll crack on. And what I want you to do, just firstly, before we get into the kind of meat of the presentation, is I'm just going to show you 6 different logos. And it'd be great if you got a pen and paper handy. You don't need to share this now, but hopefully in 20 minutes or so that you can share this. It'd just be great if you looked at the following companies and just took 30 seconds to look at these. So we've got Wetherspoons, we've got Dyson, we've got Aldi, we've got TikTok, we've got the wonderful world of IKEA, and we've got our lovely friends at Apple. What I'd like you to do, just while I'm kind of going through the next few bits, is if you've got a pen and paper, just write down, when you look at these brands, just pick one of them. Yeah. So just pick one of them. Try and think of like some words, yeah, that you would associate with that company. So ideally, maybe just one word at a time. But if you look, for example, at Dyson, if you are a customer or have used a Dyson, what 4 or 5 words pop in your mind when you think about that company? And that would just be really interesting to try and get some of your feedback on that when we come to this element later on in the presentation, to see whether you're thinking the same words as me for some of those companies. So just pick one and just think about what springs to mind when you're thinking about that brand, the interactions you've maybe had with that brand in the past. Then we'll come back to that later on in the presentation. Okay, so the first thing to cover off before we get into the 5 key brand elements is trying to make you understand, if you don't, hopefully you do already, that there is a major difference between a logo and a brand. Yeah, you can read on the screen in terms of the origin. It's no surprise where the word brand comes from, but it's really important to be clear and to be looking at the opportunity to distinguish yourself as a new business, that a brand is much more than just what you see on screen. and it's just more than some logo maybe you found on a website somewhere, or you've got someone to create from you. Yeah, it's a real way in terms of getting your branding correct to be able to distinguish yourself from the competition and clarify to the customer what you offer, why you're different, and how you can solve their problem. And I think if there's one kind of takeaway from every single presentation that I give on behalf of Wenta, is that as a business owner, you must be 100% clear on the problems that you are solving. If you are not clear on the problems you are solving for your customer, you will struggle when it comes to meeting the requirements of that customer, but probably more so you will really struggle in terms of attaining that customer in the first place. You will know, because you are all consumers, that there is a huge battle going on for your attention. And we will talk a little bit more about that later on in this presentation. And what we've also got is a situation where the attention span of people, you and I, it's been said many times, mine is horrifically low anyway. The attention span of human beings, of potential customers, is only going one way. It's certainly not going that way in terms of us having more time and more energy to engage with more people. It's 100% going the other way. So our attention span is dropping, and what that means for you as business owners or potential business owners is, if you are out there on social media, on all sorts of different other marketing channels, you have even less time now to be able to convince that customer to do something. Yeah, and I'm sure you can all recognize that with yourself. If any of you have, especially teenage children like I do, then you'll recognize that their attention span is even lower than ours. So it's about getting your message across quickly. It's about getting the right message across. And this is why I believe that branding is key for you. Yeah. And it's not just a case about having a pretty logo on a website somewhere. It's about all the key elements working together. So if you have that short amount of time to attract a new customer to your business, they can quite easily get a sense of who you are, what you're doing, and why potentially you are different from other people. So brand is really, really important, and it's key that we kind of look at why. And there's a few points I'm going to cover off. I'm not going to read everything on the screen because you can see it for yourself, but just pick on some of the kind of key elements of why I believe branding is very key. And even for, well, not just for small businesses, I'd say even more so for small businesses, because what I come across with working with tens of small businesses every week, the two common denominators generally are: they haven't got a lot of money to promote their business. Some of you may be in that situation. And so it's key that we do the right things. And therefore, the biggest commodity we have as business owners is our time. So if we can take branding seriously and get customers interested in our business quicker, that saves on our time and allows us to grow without the frustrations that may be there if we don't take this very important. So the first one I've touched on already is that branding makes your company more recognizable. So if you have a strong and clear branding, it helps people to become familiar with the business they're dealing with and to get a sense of the personality of the business and also the personality of you. Trust then plays a really big part in that, because if they're going to come to you and either you're going to separate them from their cash, either in a small way, if it's something like a throwaway purchase, or something that's maybe worth hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, then you need to build that trust, and you need to build that trust quickly. Yeah. So I know I do it as a consumer. If I go onto a website, straight away, what I'm doing is scanning what I believe to be the legitimacy of that business, and to see whether they're a company that looks as if it's one I can trust and engage with. And I'm sure you do the same. Obviously, it's going to help you to attract new customers, and that's the point of you being here today. Yeah. So having a product with a good brand on it is going to drive interest from other people. There's an example there about shirts, which maybe is valid, maybe is not. But if you look at the big brands out there, they put this huge amount of focus on their branding so that it helps them to not only sell to one person, but effectively get that person to be an ambassador for them, because they're walking around wearing their brand and epitomizing their brand on a daily basis. So that's where word of mouth and relationships like that come into play. Next is about the originality. So small businesses need to do something different. Yeah, you need to stand out from the crowd. You'll notice I don't and won't use in detailed terms like USPs, so unique selling points, because I think they're very, very difficult to get in this market. What it needs to be about your brand and about your business is that you're trying to do something differently. You're trying to do something that is better than the competition. It's very difficult to get something which is completely original, but you need to understand what it is your customers are looking for and make sure that you have a point of difference. Standing out from the competition has never been as valid as it is now, with the congested nature of pretty much most of the markets that you will be operating in. So the message for these slides is brand, not logo. Yeah. It's all about trying to make some form of connection with that customer, whether that customer has used you before and you want them to come back, or whether that customer is a new person who's looking to engage or use your business or buy one of your products. It has to be about trying to get a connection. I know that may sound a little bit over the top in terms of having some sort of emotional connection, but I think if you take your business owner hat off for a minute and put your consumer hat on, then I think you will back me up to say that in certain times, not all times, when we're dealing with companies, we are dealing with them because there is a connection and we like what they stand for, we like what they do, we like how they execute their business, and brand is a part of that. So if we've gone through the reasons as to why a brand is important, and it's not just about coming up with a logo from some website for £5, £10, if we say, right, we understand that brand is important because as consumers, we recognize that on a daily basis, we have to then look at what are the kind of key elements of a brand. So to keep things nice and simple, yeah, there are 5 key brand elements, which I'm going to talk about today, some in a little bit of detail, some in a lot of detail, because I think, some of it is just easy to understand and make sense. Some of it I need to kind of elaborate a little bit more to make sure that you kind of can see the seriousness of it and maybe give you some advice in terms of what you need to be able to do. So the first of the brand elements, and these are not necessarily in order of which you approach them, but you need to do all 5. And if you miss out one of these 5, then your brand will be weaker than it needs to be in this competitive market. So the first one of the key 5 brand elements is about brand position. Very, very important, this in terms of what you are, for whom, and why you are different. This fits in again with how you need to be 100% clear on the problem or problems you are solving for your customer, and you need to be able to be in a situation where you can get across your solution to a customer incredibly quickly. So first of all, brand position. Secondly is your brand promise. So this is what you will promise to deliver to your customers every single time. And I see a lot of small businesses putting a huge amount of effort into making sure that they satisfy their customers and they deliver what they promise to their customers at the start of their business. And then as you get busy and you get money rolling in, and all of a sudden your major issue is time, what can often happen is that the hard work you put in at the start of your business to establish this promise, to make it clear to what your customers are going to get and why you're different, kind of disappears because you are spinning plates, you are firefighting, and you are too busy. So therefore what you do is to stop looking at the core elements of your brand and what you promise your customers and just firefight and deal with customers and take their money. That may work in the short term, but if you continue doing that for a long period, then you will start to lose your customers and you will end up back to square one, where you have to go out and attain new customers on a daily basis to sustain your business. So it's having that discipline, putting these promises in place at the start, and then that will stand you in good stead for the rest of your business. So perhaps think about this. I have loads of crass analogies, as you'll get used to over the next hour, but think about the brand as a foundation of your business. If you were building a house, the first thing that you might want to be thinking about is, what type of wallpaper am I going to have? Am I going to have an open plan kitchen? Am I going to have brown cupboards, white cupboards? But actually the reality is that if you are building a house, the most important thing you need to think about are building the right foundations, making sure your house is sustainable, making sure your house is going to stay up, and making sure that everything you do on top of that is built upon solid foundations. So that's the same here. If you are starting a business or in the early stages of running a business, that you get these key elements right, and that will then give you a great foundation for growing your business in the future. The next one is the brand personality and values. So this is about what you want to be known for, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail. But brand personality is very, very similar to our personality, and very, very similar to the values of you as an individual, because companies will want to trade with and buy from, people will want to trade with and buy from companies that they believe have values and have some form of personality. And I'm sure that you can all think about situations in your life, whether it's now or in the past, where you've bought from companies based off their brand, based off their personality, not based off how much they charge or whether their product is better than someone else's, but because you like the brand, you trust the brand, and you feel as though that company has a bit of personality. And we'll look at some examples of that as we move forward. The next one is your brand story. So this is the one that often makes people cringe, because you as business owners have to stand up and put yourself out there, especially if you are a one-person business. You know, when it comes to putting in place your website, there's going to be a little section on the website called About Us. And I think that's an incredibly important section on a website and message from a small business, that you need to get across your personality. Part of your personality has to come from your story. So when we talk about a business, the principles of the business are: why are you doing what you're doing? How are you doing what you're doing? And why are you different from the competition? So the brand story is about you maybe taking yourself out of your comfort zone. Is there anyone on this call that hates talking about themselves? The thought of them putting their picture on their website or putting their life story or mini life story on their website just feels completely awful. Unfortunately, there's a reality check here. If you are a person driving your own business forward, then your customer, in most cases, not all, will want to know about you and what your story is. So often for people like you, your brand story is your story and why you're bothering to do this in the first place. And the last bit is brand associations. So this is a fancy word for saying these are all the physical bits that we get that make up our brand: the logo, the color scheme, the wording that we choose. So we call them brand associations because it's not just logos, there's other things there as well. Hopefully that all makes sense so far. There's no questions in the chat. So either you're 100% happy with what I said so far, or you've drifted off, or you're doing the ironing or doing something else. But hey, I'll continue. So the first one we're going to look at is a brand position. So I think, as much as I said, I would not necessarily think about these in a particular order. If I was going to pick one to start with, if I was consulting with a small business, it would be the brand position, because hopefully you'll see why when we go through the next couple of slides. So your brand position is talking about why you're different and the point of view and the point of your business. Yeah, it will allow you to have a connection, yeah, with your customer quite quickly if you get this right and pay attention to this. And I think the acid test of this, which having run courses over the last 3 or 4 years with early business owners, and also working with Wento over the last few months dealing with people that are trading already, the acid test for all of these people is quite simple, and one that they often struggle with. And I'd probably ask you, if we were face to face now or I could see you, I'd probably ask some of you whether you could do this and put you on the spot. But I'll be nice. It's too early to be horrible. So I'll be nice and I'll just put it out there to say, are you all comfortable that if you had 10 seconds to sell your business and promote your business, would you be able to promote your business and get someone interested in your business in 10 seconds? I think that is an incredibly difficult thing to do, but I think as business owners, you should put some effort into being confident with this. So whether it is you're selling something over an email, whether you're meeting a potential customer face to face, this is the hook. This is the important bit, and we'll delve into that a little bit more as we go forward. On top of the 10-second pitch, and I guess part of that as well, is that can you be clear to your customers about the problem you're solving, the why, Yeah. And in that time, in that 10 seconds, give them enough information to them for them to do the magic thing, which is, I want to find out more. So if you are having a conversation with a customer, you're not just going to deliver them a 10-second pitch and they're going to go, right, here's my credit card, take the payment now. This is about them warming them up and then them doing something. So if that's face-to-face, that's about them asking questions about your business. If it's online, that's clicking on your website away from your maybe your social media posts, to then find out more about you and to see whether they want to part with their hard-earned cash to buy your product or services. So it's all about the how, the why, and what problem it is you are solving. And this is really important, probably even more so than ever, because as I hopefully you agree, we're living in a fast-paced world where we're just being hit with messages left, right, and center. I think it's something like 30,000 different messages that each of us every day get hit with. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, and to be able to wade through that and be able to get cut through with that for your customer is very, very important. So think about your 10-second pitch and think about it for this reason. Yeah, you're probably going to look at the slide and think, why the hell has this bloke put a picture of a goldfish on the slide? Let me explain why. I'm old, probably a lot older than you, and there was always an expression around, maybe in the chat you can confirm whether you have heard this, where people used to refer to attention span in terms of someone having the attention span of a goldfish. Anyone ever heard of that before? Or have I just made that up? If someone can confirm and think, Michelle, great stuff. Yeah. So having the attention span of a goldfish was always the kind of line that people would say if someone wasn't kind of engaged, or you felt as if someone wasn't listening to you. Generally, I think I use this a lot with my children when they were little, because they seem to get very easily distracted. So we used to use this in terms of saying, God, that person's got the attention span of a goldfish. The problem, and this is how things have changed. Yeah, I don't know how they measured this, but it's on Google, so it must be true. They reckon that the attention span of a goldfish is 8.5 seconds. Yeah, don't know how they measured it, but we'll take it. It's on Google. It must be true, right? So 8.5 seconds is the average attention span of a goldfish. What do you think the average attention span is of a person in this day and age? If you're that inclined, why don't you just put a guess, yeah, on the chat bar for me to see whether you get it right or not. So the average attention span of a goldfish is 8.5 seconds. What do you think the average attention span is of a person, a human being in this day and age? 8 seconds. Michelle's saying less, doesn't want to tie herself to a number, but saying that 8 seconds, 5 seconds, Kelly. Yeah. I much prefer when people put bigger numbers because it makes it more impactful, but you kind of ruined it, but we'll go with it. Yeah. So the average attention span, they reckon, again, I'm not sure how they've done this. Yeah. But they reckon, those clever scientist people, is that the average attention span of a person these days is 6.7 seconds. Yeah. 6.7 seconds average attention span. You can kind of get it. You know, if you look at TikTok, if you're looking at feeds on social media about how there's stuff going all the time, and if something doesn't grab you straight away, you're scrolling past it. So the reason why I talk about this random fact of goldfish and people is because in the past, we used to say people have got an attention span of a goldfish, but our attention span is actually less. So it makes it even more important than when we're trying to deal with customers that we get over what we want to get over very, very quickly. So if we take time to go through all the different details of what we can do and why we're amazing, and this is what we sell and this is what we do, and try and do our advertising and have our conversations where we're just trying to cover everything, yeah, the reality is by the time you've got to the third thing on your list, that customer has switched off and either lost interest in you talking, a bit like some of you will be now with me, yeah, or yeah, they've just scrolled past, they've gone on to something else has grabbed their attention on Twitter or on TikTok or on Instagram or any other type of marketing. Yeah. So what we need to be able to do is get across who we are very, very quickly. Yeah. And we need to spend some time now at the early stage of our business, making it clear. Not that I don't think ever we're going to be asked to necessarily deliver a 10-second pitch in its entirety, but we need to be able to get across and face that challenge of being able to convince people who we are and what we are very, very quickly. There's two examples of that which you may have heard of before, you may not have done, but I'll just talk about those two briefly. So what you'll see on the screen, hopefully, is you'll see an elevator, and you will see a book, and these are often used in businesses to try and hone you down so that you can actually get across why your business is different very, very quickly. So the first one, the elevator pitch. Anyone heard of the elevator pitch before? I'm sure some of you have. It's obviously American by the fact that we don't call it a lift pitch, it's an elevator pitch. And the kind of message behind that is, you know, and everyone tells a story about this, is that, you know, you're trying to meet with someone who is incredibly important. You're trying to sell your services or your products to someone who is an important business person, maybe CEO of a company, and you've been trying for months and months and months to get in front of this person because you know you've got a great idea and you want to sell it to them. And eventually they relent and say to you, I tell you what, you can't have a meeting with me, but every morning when I come into my office, I get in the elevator to go to my top floor office. All the important people are on the top floor. What they say they'll do is that you will get into the elevator with them, yeah, and you have the time it takes from the bottom floor to the top floor to get them interested in your business idea. So that's why we call it an elevator pitch. So as soon as those doors close, the attention is there, but unfortunately, as soon as those doors open at the top floor, they're gone. Hopefully I've explained that in the right way. So if you get into a lift, yeah, and if it was me trying to sell to you and we get into a lift and I go, hi, my name's Matt Cheevers. I work for a company called Winter. You know, I've spent 25 years in business running different types of businesses. All of a sudden, bing, elevator doors open, that person's gone. So you need to be able to have that kind of message there that you're able to get across a reason for your business and part of the problem you're solving and how you're going to do it inside 10 seconds before you lose the attention of that customer. The second part, as you can see there in terms of that book, if you're anything like me, if anyone actually ever still goes into a bookshop anymore, but if you go into Waterstones as an example and you're looking for a book, so if I'm buying a book, generally kind of fiction, yeah, my sort of stuff, don't judge, is kind of like dark, mysterious crime type stuff. That's the sort of stuff I like. So I walk into Waterstones, yeah, and I go to the section that says crime or thrillers, yeah, and what I notice straight away when I pull a book off the shelf, I'm looking at the cover of the book. Yeah, if that makes sense. Generally, it's quite dark, mysterious, gloomy, because it's not necessarily a nice subject. So the first thing I'm doing, which is similar to what they would be doing with your logo and your color schemes, is judging whether that book is right for me. Yeah, please tell me I'm not the only one that does this. Please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I just feel as though I'm just going mad. So I pull the book off the shelf. I take a look at the cover. Straight away, I'm thinking to myself, this is my kind of book. And then, and this is the important bit, what I then do is I don't walk with that book to the till and pay the money for it. I flip the book back over. Yeah. And what I'm looking for on the back of the book is this synopsis. And generally, this book may be 400 or 500 pages long. Yeah. But what I'm then going to do is I'm going to read the synopsis on the back, which is generally what, one paragraph, maybe two paragraphs. And if I don't like that one paragraph or those two paragraphs and they don't hook me, yeah, what am I going to do with that book? Hopefully what you're all saying to yourselves is you're going to put that book straight back on the shelf. I don't think many people would go, maybe what I'll do is I'll sit there and read the first 50 pages to see whether I like it. So hopefully you can get the analogy there. If you can't quickly on your website, on your social media or face-to-face, get across to a potential customer who you are and why you're different and the problem you're solving inside 10 seconds, you are that book. Yeah, they may well have been interested in something you've done. They may well have looked at something that you've published or done, but if it doesn't grab them, the book is going back on the shelf and they're going to move on to someone else. So really important for you as early young business owners to be able to get this right, get your 10-second pitch right in your head, and that will then help you with the story that you have to tell to your customers, because it is a story about how you grab their attention and go through the process of trying to get them to part with their hard-earned cash. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. The second bit we're going to go on to now is called the brand promise. Yeah. So the brand promise is where you're looking at the experience that a customer is going to get from you. And importantly, try and make sure that that experience, a positive experience, is consistent every single time. So this is not necessarily something that you're going to say to the customer, I promise to do that, but it needs to be something, A, that they can feel and they can sense about your brand, but also if you are growing as a business, that if you take on more staff, or if it's you that's executing your business, that you're making sure that this experience is the same over and over again every single time. So the foundations of that brand promise are making sure that you are doing things that are simple, you are doing things that are credible, you are trying to do something which is unique, yeah, and something that people are going to remember. And hopefully, if you can, get something that is a message and a product and a way of working, which is inspiring to your either existing customers or your potential customers in the future. So very, very important that you set this standard out at the start to make sure your customer will understand exactly what they're going to get from you. So in terms of creating your brand promise, yeah, it is going to be one of your key founding principles, yeah, and it's about trying to plan and second guess the customer with your promise and try and think about the different issues they have and what you can do to try and put that right, yeah. So they may change depending on who you are and what sector you are in, yeah, but they need to be consistent, they need to be thought through, and they need to be executed in the right way so that your customers can see it and your customers can feel it. Yeah. So the process behind that, what I would do if I was in your situation is that I would kind of get a blank sheet of paper, get a pen and list out all the reasons why a customer may well choose your business and the attributes of your business you think are important and you want to deliver on all the time. It may be that your company has many, many different attributes. So this is a case of then going through and maybe circling them, putting a score underneath them to say, right, okay, there are many attributes that I think we can deliver, but are there certain ones that we think are more important to our business? This crosses over a little bit with brand values, which we'll talk about, because depending on the nature of the business, it may be that openness, yeah, is something that's going to be really important in the brand promise. It may be if you're dealing with issues which are sensitive, it may be the trust element that's going to be important in your brand. So looking at what you're doing, looking at what marketing you're servicing, just trying to write down some of the things that you believe you can stand for, that you believe your business is going to be built upon. And that's a really, really important foundation stage to get these things right. Yeah. So have a think about some of the attributes you've got, have a think about some of the things that you want to do with your business and how you want to help people and solve their problems. Get them down on paper and they will then form part of your brand promise. So what you're really saying with this is that maybe not every time will I get every single attribute of my business across to that customer. Sometimes I may not execute everything in the perfect way, but if there are 10 reasons for my business existing and 10 reasons on how I can help a customer, are there 4 or 5 that are fundamental to your brand, fundamental to the way you treat your customers and fundamental to your brand promise? So making sure that even if you're not executing all of these things, to make sure that you are doing the basics right. And that's really what a brand promise is, to kind of make sure that you put out there what you're going to do for customers and you stick to it. Because probably one of the biggest issues in terms of growing a business, as I touched on before, is that you start off really well. You start off in the right way in terms of, servicing your customers correctly. But as you get bigger, yeah, and you get drawn away from that, what you start to do is provide a lesser service and you don't think about the customer as much as you should. And albeit that you may well have some growth in the short term, that will come home to roost in the future because you've not stuck to your promises and not stuck to your values. So incredibly important that you get this right. The next of the 5 is the brand values. So if we go back to the original, well, probably one of the first slides I saw, hopefully all of you have taken part in my little game and have looked at one of the 6 logos that are on the screen there. And I asked you at the start of this call to be able to maybe just take a note of the words that sprung to mind as you looked at these companies. So it'd be great if a couple of you at least could share those words, tell me which of these brands you picked and what words you come up with when you first see that logo and how you associate to that. That'll be really good to make it a little bit more interactive. So the companies you've got there, you've got Wetherspoons, you've got Audi, you've got IKEA, you've got Dyson, TikTok, and Apple. So 6 brands varying in size, 6 brands and logos which are different, yeah, and are in different marketplace. Yeah, so we've got there already. We've got TikTok fun. I'm with you on that. I'm a little bit addicted to TikTok, if I'm honest. Apple sophisticated like that in terms of connecting with that. Michelle there with Apple in terms of having leading technology. So something about being kind of smart, something about being new, something about being better maybe than the competition. So, you know, and please share any others of you share with the words there. The reason why I do this is because I think these are 6 examples, whether you like them or not. Some of you might absolutely despise TikTok. Some of you may be a kind of a Vax person rather than a Dyson person. And some of you probably most certainly wouldn't be saying dead in a Wetherspoons at any time of day or night. The combination of these businesses, and they've been chosen for a reason, is because I believe all of them are really good examples of where brand values and what these companies have done to try and stick brand values to their business and make them a fundamental part of what they do. Whether you like them or not, all these companies stand for something. So whether it is sophistication, whether it is leading technology, whether it is fun, like with the TikTok examples, all of these companies here have come into a marketplace that was dominated by someone else. And that's a really important message, because these 6 companies, whether you like them or not, have come into marketplaces and they've not been the biggest player originally. They may have been a relatively small player and they've come in and they've overtaken other example companies. And they've done that by having good products, but they've also done that by being very, very set on their values and what they want to stand for as a company. And I'll just go through very quickly a couple of examples of those on the stage. Has anyone here got a Dyson? Yeah. I've had one in the past. Yeah. So if you look at a company like Dyson, Dyson came into a marketplace that was incredibly dominated by another company. Hopefully some of you are saying out loud what you think that is. Yeah, that company was so dominant in their marketplace, yeah, that even the action associated to what you do, yeah, was named after their brand. So in that situation, yeah, the market that Dyson came into was run by a company called Hoover. Yeah. So when you went home and said, I'm going to do the Hoovering was actually the brand name, not the action, because the action would be, I'm going to do the vacuuming. So Hoover was so dominant in that marketplace that it actually took over the action of Hoovering rather than vacuuming. So massively sophisticated company at that time and incredibly dominant in terms of the brand and the products that were out in the marketplace. Along comes Dyson. No one had ever heard of them before. Yeah, along they come, and straight away, by doing things different, by talking different to their customers, yeah, have overtaken that product in terms of Hoover. And you don't very rarely hear of Hoover being mentioned now, because it's all about Dyson and other brands. So it's just an example about a company. Yes, they've come along with a different product, but they've come along to a marketplace and done something, you know, fundamentally different to what the main players in that market have done before. Same for Audi, same for Wetherspoon in terms of their marketplaces. Whether you like them or not, you have to look at them and say, you know, they've done something different and they've gone out of their way to do something that is much more compelling from a customer. So interesting, depending on what sort of words you come up with. But hopefully, and if we were in a room together where I would talk through this, is that actually probably what you've done there by thinking of different words for those brands is that you've actually tried to think about their values. So if you're just looking at a logo there, what you're picking out from that is, do I associate certain values with these companies? And do I think these companies are doing a good job? And do they match my own estimations? Yeah. So the connection with these words is something we call brand values. And brand values can often be called brand personality, but they are a set of guiding principles that shape every aspect of your business. The best way maybe to think about these is that these can often be similar to what you have as a personality. Yeah, we meet all sorts of different types of people as we go through life. Some of them are our cup of tea, some of them are not. Yeah. But what we quickly look for in a person is whether we think that person shares the same values as us. Yeah, hopefully you're agreeing, nodding with me as I'm saying this. So it can often be, it doesn't really matter what gender that person is, what ethnicity they are, what background they've had. Yeah, all of that for me goes out the window. What I'm looking at when I meet a person for the first time is, do we share similar values? So the good news is, if you are the person that's leading your business, what you can do, if you have strong values and strong personality traits, if they are relevant, you can make them part of your business values. That's really good in a lot of ways, because if you are spending 40, 50 hours a week working on your business and the values of the business, the personality of the business are very similar to your own, you're not going to be tempted to be faking it till you're making it. Yeah, you can actually be generally yourself, generally, not the full version of yourself for obvious reasons. But if it is something where your values and your personalities are aligned to that of your business, it's easier for you to switch from your personal life to your business life without thinking, right, I need to be a completely different person. Yeah. And I think, without getting all kind of sentimental and stuff, I think in this often crazy world of ours sometimes, where people are judged on all sorts of different things, I think if we all actually spent a little bit more time judging people on people's values, their personalities, their ethics, rather than what they look like or what they do, then perhaps this world might be a slightly better place. But I'll get off my soapbox now. Maybe one or two of you might agree with me. So brand values, in terms of setting them, is very, very important. Yeah. So they can give you the edge over big companies, because you can do stuff that they can't. Okay, you don't have £1 million a year to spend on your marketing, but what you can do by being a small company, you can be more agile, you can be more different. Yeah. And you can react to things and have values that you know are going to be tapping into your target customers and what they're looking for. They can certainly, by having strong brand values that you publish and talk to your customers about, they can distinguish your brand from the competition. Yeah. And hopefully some of you who are on this call or listening to the recording, hopefully some of you are doing is, you're doing a business that you are passionate about, and you are doing a business that is driven by something inside of you, whether that's a belief, whether that's something that's happened to you in your previous years, or something you feel passionately about. Yeah, if you have the right values in place, then it's going to help you to drive that forward, and people are going to see those values and see that personality and see that passion as well, in terms of, it coming out in every single thing you can do. Yeah. So if you're fortunate enough to have the values, strong values yourself, that you want to publish for your company and align that, happy days. For some of us, it may be that you need to have a slight difference between your personality and your values, and looking at what you're doing. What I would do with this is, I would be looking for 4, 5, 6 different values to underpin your business. Once you've decided on what those values are, then I would be publishing them. They would be on my website. But more importantly, I would want my customers in my marketing, in my website, in conversations I'm having face to face, to feel that value. Yeah. It's a bit like when you meet new people. You don't meet a person for the same time and they go, these are my values, these are my personality traits. What you want to be able to do is sense that quite quickly. You want to be able to get that feeling. I'm sure, I don't think anyone does these sorts of things anymore, but back in the day, we used to have parties. Back in the day, at a party, where would I always be found? Well, generally closest to the booze, but generally in the kitchen, because I thought that's where all the kind of people like me will hang out. Yeah. And sometimes you got caught in situations where someone came up to you and you started talking, and sometimes, fortunately, you're in a conversation when you've got something in common straight away. Yeah. Whether it's the football, whether it's your political beliefs, whether it's other things you like, and you can have a really good conversation with someone you haven't met before. And what you're trying to do, for me, is sense whether those people are aligned with you, with their personality traits and their values. Unfortunately, on the flip side of things, sometimes you got stuck in that conversation. Yeah, please again, tell me if it's just me. You got stuck in that conversation, and inside 30 seconds, probably inside 10 seconds, you're thinking, how the hell do I get away from this person? This person is not my cup of tea at all. Sometimes you may end up being wrong, but because you're judging about their personality and their values. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. No different to when you're engaging with a company. Yeah, a potential customer wants to get a sense of who you are. Yeah, and about whether they want to use you for a service or a product because they believe there is something different. It'd be good because I talk on these things and I can't see. It'd be good if someone could just A, confirm that you're still awake, B, whether you agree with me that, you know, brand values for a business are incredibly important and you should be thinking about what underpins your business. That would just give me some sort of ratification that Michelle's still there. So it's just me and Michelle, that's fine. Yeah, everyone else may have drifted off. Yeah. So brand values really important, really important. Yeah. And I'll just run through quickly because I'm conscious of time, run through quickly some of the kind of key, maybe some examples of some people that are doing it well. You may not agree, you may agree. So the first example here is ASOS. If you've ever used ASOS, seem to have a bit of a kind of checkered history with stuff. Their values are authentic, brave, creative, and disciplined. The last one I kind of like, the discipline thing. What they're saying as part of their value is that we're going to need to take time to get really good at this. Yeah, we recognize that we're going to hone our skills. Yeah, and it's going to take us a while to be perfect. That's quite a brave value. Yeah, because kind of what most companies are doing are already saying we're really great. What they're saying here is kind of we recognize this is work in progress, so it's kind of quite honest, really. Next one is Lego. I was on the Lego website yesterday, slight aside, looking at a present for my nephew. Jesus Christ, how much is Lego now? So expensive. Anyway, so the values for Lego, which you would see different from ASOS, is about imagination, about creativity, about fun, about learning, about caring, and about the quality of it. So they know that you can go out and buy other products that are similar to Lego, yeah, that may be a lot cheaper, but what they're saying is they're going to stand by the quality of what they do. And it becomes a kind of bit of an institution with Lego, and that's why their values are so important to them. The next one splits the room if we were face to face, because, you know, when it comes to this sort of technology, you've either got people that love Apple or you've got people that are kind of Samsung fans or other, or absolutely despise Apple. But I think it's a good example because it links through to what I'm saying before about their values. And I think this is a good example because sometimes you have to be careful about the claims you make. So for them, it's about accessibility. Agree with that. For them, it's about education. Kind of agree with that. Inclusion and diversity. Kind of not really sure on that, but we'll take it. Supplier responsibility, the environment. I'm not so sure if you read into how these phones are made and what they're doing, that the environment and supplier responsibility is necessarily two values that I would associate with Apple, but I'll leave you to make your own mind on that. And the last one, which I think they do take very seriously, is the privacy. So that's the kind of three examples of companies that are out there with the brand. Some of them have got 6, some of them got 4. You know, I'd go in the middle with this and I would spend some time coming up with your values for your business and do it in this way where you're kind of saying one word and then explaining it a little bit so it makes sense to you and makes sense to your customers. There is also that middle ground of people. Some of you might be in the process of putting in place a business plan. Has anyone written a business plan? Stick it in the chat if you have, or if you are in the process of doing that. I know I've had a I know I've had a conversation with at least one, maybe 2 of you in this group about business plans in the past. So if you are doing a business plan, this sort of content needs to go in there because it's about a compelling story and about convincing people that that what they need to do is about right. Next slide I won't dwell on for a lot because I'm overrunning already, but I put this slide up here because what I want to show you or convince you of is that your brands are not just a tick box exercise. Your brand values is not just a tick box exercise. It's then also about, once you understand your brands, and these are adverts relating to the 5-6 companies I put up earlier, is that your brand values are core to you, and what you want to try and do is get across your brand values in your advertising and in your messaging. Yeah, so it's not just about this bloke called Matt told me I need brand values, I need them for my business plan, stick them on the business plan and then lock it in the drawer, never look at it again. These things should be flowing out of everything you do so that people get why you're doing things, whether that's using humor, whether that's in the Weatherspoons one, looking at kind of price as being a kind of driver for them, whether it's about the whole kind of iPhone covering the face privacy message. Hopefully you can see there from those examples that your brand values can be alive and come to life in terms of advertising and making you stand out from the competition. Next, we're going to move on to brand story, which is the easiest one, but often the most difficult one here in terms of what you're going to be doing as your business. And I get this all the time from business owners for two different reasons. Yeah. And mostly when I'm talking about the brand story, it's about when they have to do that about, so I've just seen a question on it. Is brand value similar to vision, mission? The brand value, what's the most similar to mission here is your 10-second pitch for me. Yeah, your 10-second pitch, which can have some of your values in it, where you're talking about what it is, why do you exist, what are you going to do, and how you're going to do it differently. I would say that your 10-second pitch is your mission statement. The vision statement is always a bit fluffier, where your vision is something that you want to aspire to be. So your mission is about what am I going to do every single day, day in, day out to satisfy my customers. My vision is more aspirational about maybe where you want to be in 5-10 years time. So brand values will be part of that. Yeah. But it's really how that's wrapped up in a 10-second pitch. So your 10-second pitch will often be very, very similar to your mission statement. But thank you for the question. So your brand story is generally going to be about you. Unless I'm sitting here talking to people here that are going to go out straight away with the business and employ 20, 30, 40 staff. Generally, most businesses in the UK are one-person businesses. Interesting stat here. Yeah, I find it interesting. You're going to find it incredibly boring. Did you know that 75% of companies in the UK are one-person run businesses? Really surprised me when I saw that. So if you are a one-person running business, you are part of the majority, the overwhelming majority. And it feels sometimes is that the smaller number of companies who are bigger seem to get the share of voice, seem to get legislation passed in their favour. But actually the UK, 75% of companies in the UK are run by one person in the business. So at least you should not feel alone if that's what you're going to do. Yeah. So your brand story is the bit you're going to tell people about, depending on how comfortable it is. Yeah. So it's talking about your why, talking about your products, knowing your audience, and telling people why you have started this business and what your vision is, what your mission is, and why you want to make a difference. The reason why people struggle with this, because it feels like it's a bit of an ego exercise. People don't like talking about themselves in detail. So that's the first problem. The second problem is something that you may have heard of before called imposter syndrome. Has anyone ever heard of imposter syndrome? Probably comes up in about 30% of the conversations I have with early business owners or established business owners, where it is just them. It's their business. And imposter syndrome is that feeling sometimes when you're sitting there thinking, I'm not good enough to run a business. I'm not good enough to be successful. Yeah, I have not got the skills that I need to be able to do to push the business forward. So common issue, yeah. And sometimes then if you have even a little trickling of imposter syndrome, because it's a kind of big thing, then you might find it difficult to embrace this and look at your story. But I think it's really, really important that if your business is that way aligned in terms of you are an important part of it, then tell your story, share your story, and it should certainly be part of the 5 key elements of branding. Okay, the last one, and what can often be the more complex one, or often the one that's been ignored, is brand associations. So brand associations is made up of 3 or 4 things typically. So it can be the name, it can be a tagline or a slogan, and it can be the design, so the style and the colors and the tone of voice. It can be a whole myriad of different things that make up your brand associations. It's not just the logo, yeah. It's about everything else and the package that people are going to see. Question there, what practical way can we deal with imposter syndrome? If I knew the answer to that, I'd probably have like a leather couch in my office where I sit people down and give them counseling, but it's a really good question. Let me give you one practical way that you can help with imposter syndrome, because I don't think you'll ever get rid of it if you're that way inclined. The best way that will help to get rid of imposter syndrome is to get a mentor. Yeah. Get someone who is either invested in your business, as in they care about you, or someone that has a strong background in business who's going to tell you the truth. Trust that person, listen to that person. And if you are going through stages where you are not convinced that you are the right person, or not convinced what you're doing is right, then if you have a mentor, if you have a person that you can trust, yeah, then that can really help to negate some of that, because you've got someone who's telling you, who has no vested interest in you or your business, that you are capable, and giving you the reassurance that you have the right skills to go forward. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. To deal with it 100%, I don't think you ever will. I think it's just part of who we are, but you can put things in place to mitigate against that, because if it gets a hold, it can be incredibly dangerous to a dangerous thing to get in. Yeah. So on the mentor side, just a little bit of point of kind of note on that. Don't get your best mate to be your mentor. Don't get your auntie who's lovely to be your mentor. Don't get one of your kids to be your mentor, yeah, or your parents to be your mentor, unless you are 100% convinced they are going to tell you the truth. We all are, and this is really nice, because it's nice to be surrounded by people who will tell us what we want to hear and say nice things about us. Yeah. But if you are trusting them in terms of being a mentor, and they are the sort of people that are nice people, we like these sorts of people, but everything you're doing, they're saying to you, oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's amazing. Matt, what you did is brilliant. Oh, I love your website. It's amazing. It's really nice to hear, but it's not necessarily always useful in the scheme of things, dealing with imposter syndrome and pushing your business forward, because perhaps at times they're not telling you the truth. So if you get a mentor and there's services like us, we provide mentor services and business advice, or it may be someone you've worked with in the past or someone in the industry, get someone that's going to be honest with you. Yeah. So yes, in answer to the question, that's part of the role I guess we play. You know, my job on a daily basis when I'm not delivering these is giving people practical advice, and the other two roles I play are a mentor, yeah, just helping people. And it feels ever increasingly the other role I play is that of agony aunt, so listening to people's problems and trying giving them solutions. Yeah. But I think in life, in business, it's good to have someone that we can trust, someone that's going to tell us the truth and give us that structure to move forward. So yes, that's certainly part of the service we provide at Windsor. And guess how much it's going to cost you? Nothing. It's all free of charge. So spread the word. So we're going to look at some of these different elements now, and I'm going to kind of cover off some of them in a little bit of detail, some of them less so because they're plainly obvious. If you are at the start and you haven't decided on what your company name is, you haven't decided what your branding is, then maybe this exercise next might be quite useful for you. So this is where you're looking at the tone of your brand, looking at the tone of what you want to be. Yeah, and making the decisions. So if you see on the screen now, hopefully you can see these kind of, how many are there? 12 pictures, yeah, 6 on each side. It's kind of like, imagine like a sliding scale, yeah, that you'd be sliding this along. So you would be making decisions about saying, is my brand, do I want my brand to be playful or serious? Do I want it to be luxurious or affordable? Do I want it to be modern or classic? So maybe a starting point, if you're unsure, is looking at this and kind of thinking about which side of this you would favor in terms of your business, which would help you in coming up with a name, would certainly help you in coming up with a logo and a color scheme, because, you know, different colors are connected to all these different types of emotions and approaches here. Yeah. So, and if you're not sure of that, then something I'll show you in a bit will maybe help with that or make it even more unclear. But colors are really, really important in terms of what we do. So maybe have a think about something like that to set you off at the start. But if you kind of already have an idea, then you might be just that it's the name of the business. It might be that you're very clear on what you want to do. Then you can go through the key stages in terms of coming up with your brand associations. So first, in terms of a name, so just some advice here in terms of if you're picking a name. I have kind of bitter experience of this. And I've done this in 2 different ways. I've had my own business twice, as well as spending 20 odd years in corporate life, working for a lot of household name businesses. Here are some of the things that you should kind of be careful of. So, you know, making sure that you're doing the searches that no one else has got a similar name or the same name. Don't pick a name that could limit your business in the future. Great example there in terms of Amazon and what they started off as and what they've ended up now. Avoiding hard to spell names can be a problem as well, but thinking about the name, don't overthink it, but get something that has legs. Yeah. My last business was called, I'll tell you about my first business. So in my first business, I spent what felt like weeks and months coming up with a logo, coming up with a name for my business. And I ended up, after going through that process, spending quite a bit of money, coming up with a name for a company that I thought was fantastic, and then realized quite quickly it sounded like a 1970s, 1980s soul funk band. The name I came up with was called Smooth Direction. Awful. Absolutely awful. Got the logos made up, bought the URL. It was only after everything was in place that it just sounded so cringe, absolutely cringe. I kind of ran with it for a bit, but kind of got almost embarrassed every time someone asked me what the name of my business was. What I did for the second business was I just chose something completely random, because it wasn't important to me to have a public facing business, because most of mine was B2B. So I went completely the other way, and the name of my second business was called J Lula. I know it sounds really funny, but I made that up from the names of my children. So Jacob Lewis Alana, otherwise known as JJ Lulu Lala. Sounds like the Teletubbies. So I called my business J Lula, because I just didn't want to go through that whole smooth direction disaster again. I thought my kids would be really impressed with that. I don't even think they looked up from their phones when I told them that they were honoured to be part of my business name. So think about what you're doing, I guess, is the message here about, be open, get people's opinion, and that can be important. But again, don't just get the opinion from people who are just going to tell you everything you need to know. Yeah. So having something that has a meaning can be important. And the last bit there, come up with some options. Don't just settle on one. Come up with some options. Send them to people that you trust. Send them to people that will give you an honest opinion. And if you can, this is really important. Yeah. Have an idea about the sorts of people that are going to be coming to your business. And then if you can, seek the opinion on your name, your logo, all your brand associations from people that are going to be similar to your customers. So if you're going to Auntie Doris, who is 75 years old, seeking her opinion on your logo, but your target market is 19-year-old people that live in London, then you're wasting your time by asking Auntie Doris for her opinion, because she's not going to be reflective of your customers at all. Hopefully that makes sense. In terms of your logo, I'll give a couple of examples here, but it's about where you can go and what you need to do. Yeah. Please try to prompt this name. I have no idea what that means, what that says. Please explain. I'll try and give you an opinion on it. So your logo, make sure if you can, it reflects your values. Yeah. You have a question at the start to see whether it needs to be something you do yourself, or whether you go outside and use someone else to do it. Colors important, fonts incredibly important. Some fonts look fantastic on a Word document. Put them on a logo that people are going to look at for less than 6.5 seconds. They can't read what that is. Yeah, so very important to get the fonts right. I think generally less is more. Yeah, but again, prepare 5 options and test them out with your friends to see whether they reflect the value, but get it with the right people. Yeah. Second point there, in terms of the budget, be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, about who you use. There are a huge number of companies out there that will say, oh, I can build you a logo for £10, £15, £20. Unfortunately, in this world, well, it's not just in this world now, it's been that way forever. You get what you pay for. Yeah. So if something seems too good to be true, it generally is. Yeah. So one, just think about the quality of work you're going to come back. They're going to come back with. And then 2, if they're doing something for 20, 30, 40 quid in terms of a logo, think about what's going to happen if you want to change it. And often what happens, this is the same for website design as well. People out there going, I can build you a website for £200. Yeah. When you go back to try and change it 2 months afterwards, it's £500 to change every single page after that. So they're hooking you in with a low discount and trying to rip you off after that, unfortunately. So logo is important. The good news is there's so many tools out there now. Yeah. It's going to be on a slide coming up, but has anyone ever used Canva? Canva. If you have, I'm addicted to it. Brilliant website. You can get a lot of the functionality free of charge, but it is actually one of the very few websites where I pay to go up a level, because I kind of get caught sometimes and help people with their logo because I enjoy it. Not that I should be doing that. Amazing tool. Yeah, really easy to use once you've got over that first hurdle, and you can use websites like that to develop your logos and also to develop a lot of your marketing. Here are 5 examples of which I like, which have been stolen from Canva. And these are just examples of where you're kind of trying to bring a logo to life and link it in with what you're doing. So you've got the ironing company there, Iron Ducks. You've got the hanger with the kind of duck face on it. Love the guitar studio where the iron, yes, are kind of shaped in the shape of a guitar. Movers in terms of being able to pick up your belongings and drop them off somewhere else. So these are just examples that have stuck with me about it doesn't just have to be a name. What you can do is, use images, use icons to really bring that logo and brand to life. All of these on Canva, these types of examples, you just put in guitar studio and it will just give you ideas around guitars or studios. So great tools available that weren't available 5-10 years ago, where people had to sort of sit and draw it out and come up with ideas. So if you haven't already, have a look at Canva. Some other tools you can use here. So there's probably another 37,000 different tools you can use now with AI in terms of generating. I'm not going to go into AI because, to be honest, go straight over my head. Yeah, but there's tools there that you can use which will help you to generate names for your business, get free inspiration, and then obviously once you've settled on a name or thought about a name, you need to check whether URL's available, check whether you can get an email address for it. Yeah, but there's many companies that you can look at here. Just be careful whether you're paying for these sorts of services, because with the exception of Canva, there's generally a catch. And I'm sure in the future, when Canva wake up and realize how popular they are, there will also be a catch with them that will end up having to pay a lot more money. In terms of design software, so these are the top ones for 2022. So you've got Adobe there in terms of Illustrator. Some of these are easier to use than others. There's that little Canva popped up there again. You'll get this presentation so you can check out all of these have got links inbuilt to them. So when you get the presentation, if you want to look at some of these tools here, then be my guest, have a look, see whether they're going to be useful for designing your logo, but also whether you think it's important for your marketing to make things simple for you and to have a easy life as you go forward. The next bit with when it comes to logos is something again that I'm kind of a fan of. If you are picking a name which is completely random, or if you are picking a name that doesn't make sense quite quickly, if you pick a name that doesn't make sense quite quickly in that 6.5 seconds you've got, is that you should really consider whether you need a tagline or a slogan to accompany your logo. I think this can work really well and can help you if you end up pushing your business into different areas. So a slogan and a tagline are something a little bit different from each other. So a tagline is generally geared towards more of an inspirational message. Yeah, more of a kind of vision, more about something that they want to inspire in people rather than actually telling people what you do. Yeah, an example of that, if you think of Nike or however you pronounce it, yeah, if you think of the Nike, we'll go with Nike, yeah, they have a tagline where it just says, "Just do it." So there is a meaning behind that for them in terms of getting people out, getting people exercising, doing stuff, but it does not describe what the business does. So that is a tagline rather than a slogan. A slogan's going to be more of an example of, something like a Ronseal or something like that. And I'll show you some of these shortly, where you're actually trying in a very few words to make it 100% clear or clearer to the customer what you do as a business. So I used that when I had my last business, which is no longer trading. So when I had the random name jlular.com, I thought to myself, I need a slogan. I come up with a really cheesy one because what I was doing was helping companies and also helping individuals either in their careers or in their business ideas. So my company name was jlular.com, means nothing. My slogan was helping individuals and businesses realize their potential. So what I did with that, whether you like it or not, what I thought I did with that is I took a name which meant nothing, which made it easier for me to get it, easier for me to acquire it. Yeah. And by putting a slogan on, I gave people an idea of what my business was all about. So depending on your name, I'm happy to have this conversation with you individually. Yeah. And give you some guidance on names, logos, and stuff. We can book a one-to-one call to do that. You know, you may want to consider having a slogan, and you may want to see that as an important part of what you do going forward. The good thing about a slogan as well is it's easy to change the slogan without throwing away the logo. So if you've got a logo and you put time into it and people have started to identify it, if you have a slight pivot with your business and want to change things with your business, then it's easier sometimes to be able to amend the slogan, because people will still see the logo there, and there is continuity. So have a think about whether you might need that, whether it needs to be product specific, it needs to be user specific, it might be a particular category or a particular industry that you're going into, or, you know, maybe it might be linked to the problem that you are solving for that customer. So for some of you, really, really important. Yeah. For others, if you have a name of a business which is very, very prescriptive, yeah, then perhaps you might not need a slogan to accompany your logo for your business. I'm just going to skip through there. So here's some examples, mixture here of slogans and logos. So you've got does exactly what it says on the tin, which is Ronseal, which has become infamous. Every little helps. Normally, if I could see you, I'd do a little test there and see whether you can actually get all of these right. The best a man can get. Let's have a proper brew because you're worth it. The makeup of makeup artists. You'll see really kind of I think the cleverest one here is TUI. Hopefully you know TUI, the travel company. We cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Really clever for me, that kind of slogan, to say, you know, they're going to take care of the details in terms of crossing the T's and dot the I's, but it's all going to be about you. I never realized that when I first saw the TUI logo, because it used to be like Thompson's and different companies, but really, really clever. So some examples here. You may well consider it. If you're not really sure, then just check in with me and I'll tell you whether I think you need one, depending on the complexities of your market. The next thing, which, oh God, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I'm obviously not going to, just in case you get worried, because I have got other things to do, yeah, is the role that colors play in your business. Yeah, so there's some advice here in terms of what you need to do or what you should be doing, and setting early on what your brand colors are. Very, very important, and can save you a huge amount of time. Canva, again, it's almost like I'm being paid by Canva. I'm not, I can assure you. Canva have this great tool if you upgrade to the next level for like a tenner a month, where you can kind of set your brand colors so that every time you're creating an advert, you're not having to think about, is that the right shade of red or is that the right shade of blue? So you have this kind of brand connection here. Yeah, there's some brands on here. What you can see with this color emotion guide is better when it's like full screen, so you'll be able to look at it in your own time. But, you know, this is how colors are linked to certain types of messages. Yeah, the real clever marketing people will be able to talk about this for hours and hours. Yeah, so whether it is the kind of, you know, the sort of yellowy, orangey, where it's all about optimism, about being friendly, about being warmth, about offering clarity to people. And you can see some brands down the side there where, you know, they have owned these colors and used these colors because they're trying to use the color to get across something. Probably the best example with that is where companies now are using the color green, yeah, to suggest they are environmentally friendly. They look after the planet. They're kind of a conscientious company. If you look at the green one there, and you can see there some of the companies there, I'm not so sure whether green is right for them, yeah, or whether they've chosen it, companies like BP, whether they've chosen it to be environmentally friendly or not. You'll have your own opinions on that, but it's about health, it's about well-being. So, you know, even just have a think about that. You don't have to get into this detail, but think about the colors that you want to use. Is your brand, are your products upmarket? Are they more sort of bargain? It doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with being that. Yeah. But what colors would you normally associate with those types of things? Yeah. So interesting to look at that color emotion guide and make the right decision on your branding and your color scheme as you go forward. The next part of the brand associations, which I won't talk in a lot of detail around, but hopefully you'll get my point from my second slide, yeah, is that when you're dealing with customers, yeah, it's not necessarily about what you say. In fact, forget customers. Let's talk about life in general. Often it's not important what actually comes out of here, yeah, it's how you say it and which manner it comes out. Yeah, my favorite example, I don't know whether any of you had a mother like this. Yeah, but when I was younger, forget when I was younger, it still happens now. Yeah, simply by saying my name, my mother saying my name, I knew from her tone whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, even to this day, when I'm being good, which doesn't happen very often, my mother calls me Matt. Yeah, you can all guess what happens if I've said something inappropriate, I've not been a good boy, or I haven't called her enough, or popped round for a cup of tea. I get called Matthew. So straight away, if she calls me Matthew, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm in trouble. Yeah. So the tone of voice for your customers, once you've understood who your customers are, is about how you express yourself, the language you use. That can be linked to your imagery, your font, your logo, and it can also certainly be linked to the language you use, whether that is written, so on emails, on your website, on your social media platforms, but also about what happens if you have that ability to talk to people face to face. Yeah, or God forbid you get to talk to people over a webinar. Yeah, the tone of how you say things is very, very important. And this is very important if you are coming up with a new brand or thinking about the brand you have. Think about the words you use. Think about what you want to try and get across. I always think about when I receive all these emails, most of them are junk. There's so many ways, even on that first line of an email. There's so many ways to address a person. It could be, dear Matt. It could be hi Matt, it could be hey Matt, it could be dear Mr. Cheevers, my surname, or it could be just Mr. Cheevers. There's so many different ways, even on that opening, that we can change that depending on the personality of our business. Yeah. So think about the tone of voice, think about the communication of it and why it's important. I'm just going to flip through to this slide here. So this can help you. Yeah. And hopefully you're seeing 4 boxes on here, like a purpley color, orangey color, blue and green. This can really help you to come up with what you want your tone of voice to be. So it's a little bit like the sliders I put on the slide a few minutes ago. I'm saying about, depending on whether you're to the right, to the left, it can help you to come up with a name. This is the same. Yeah, for tone of voice. So what you can do, and what I always do in business and generally in my personal life, if I'm presented with a load of options like I am on this, yeah, what I tend to do is get rid of the ones that I know aren't important to me. Yeah, and then that just leaves me a fewer that I can then look at, think about, give a bit more detail to come up with it. So you've got the key here about character and persona. So do you want to be warm, inspiring? Do you want to be professional? Do you want to have some sort of authority depending on what you do? Yeah. The tone, is it humble? Is it honest? Is it more clinical? Yeah. And there's no right or wrong answers with this in any of these boxes, because it depends on, yeah, the type of business you're going into. Yeah. If you're going into a business, yeah, where you're selling something which is high risk, I can't think of an example right now, but think of something that is high risk, something that is dangerous. Yeah. If I'm looking at the character and persona of that business, I don't want a business that's all friendly, warm, and playful. If this is something that is really, really serious, I want them to be professional. I want them to have a certain amount of authority, because this is really important to me. Probably like going and maybe into a solicitors, lawyers, yeah, maybe an accountant, that sort of thing, where you're trusting them with something that's really important. Yeah. If you walked into the office and they're there with flip-flops, t-shirt, a pair of shorts, and was like, all right, mate, all right, mate, all right, mate, speaking like I do, yeah, then is that really going to back up what you're using them for? Maybe some of you would like that. So thinking about the character persona, thinking about the tone, thinking about the language, thinking about the purpose, and then looking at some of these words, yeah, and getting these words right for your business so that you're setting in stone, yeah, how you're going to talk to your customers as you move forward. And again, like I said right at the start, it's important for you to do this now, because you're going to get busy. Things are going to get complicated. Things are going to get complex. Yeah. And when you're busy and you're running your businesses and you don't know how the hell you're going to service any of your customers because it's 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday and you've been working since 7 o'clock in the morning, yeah, you're not going to sit there and go back about, let me think about my logo. Let me think about the way I'm going to talk to my customers, because you're going to be too busy. And that could be dangerous. Do this work now. Set this work in stone now, so that when you are operational, running your business and you're busy, this is second nature. Yeah. This is it's set in stone. You do it. Yeah. And you've done it once, you've done it twice. And then when you've done it 6, 7, 8, 9 times, yeah, you know exactly what you're doing. So use that time now. You have to think about all this sort of stuff because I think it is incredibly, incredibly important. I won't go through the examples. Yeah. So I've reached the end. Yeah. I've rushed a little bit at the end because I'm conscious of your time. Yeah. But the message that I want to leave you with today, yeah, 2 messages I want to leave you with today. Yeah. Get these 5 brand elements right. Spend the time now thinking about how you want to represent yourself to your potential customers, because you are going into, every single one of you is going to be going into a congested market space. Yeah. And if you don't get this right at the early stages, then you'll be making it up as you go along. Spend the time now to get these 5 key things down on paper. Yeah, you know what I mean, but I say down on paper, on your computer, so it's there, and make sure you live and breathe these things every single day. And if you do that, I will almost guarantee you that you will have an edge on your competition, because not enough companies take this approach. They just go out there and get on with it. Yeah, your customers will see who you are, and even though you may not get instant success, if you have the right values, if you have the right promise, the right position of your business, yeah, then you're going to attract people, and you're going to attract the right people to your business, and you will make sure that you're setting your business up in the right way, so that then what you can do is focus on the interesting and exciting stuff, doing the right marketing, servicing your customers, sending out their products, whatever it may be. Get these things right, build a solid foundation for your business, and that will save you time in the long run. It may feel as though it's a lot to do now, but setting up a business is not about the successes you have in the first month. Setting up your business is about 2-3 years later. Are you doing it in the right way, and are you making money? Build these foundations. If you build these foundations correct, then everything else will fall in place afterwards. Quick question on there. If you came up with a unique name, is it important to trademark it? Probably. There's costs involved, there's a process involved. It depends on the scale of your business, where you're trying to operate, what you think you're going to do. I wouldn't necessarily think you have to do it straight away, but it depends on the business. It's one of those cop-out answers that I'm going to give to a question, which doesn't happen, to be fair, that often. But in this case, it depends. So we can go through that, because I know we're having conversations as well. Last point is that we have loads of support available. What I'm going to do is my email address is on there, but I'm going to put my email address in the chat as well. If you relate to some of the things that have been said so far, if you need help with your business, can't even type while I'm talking. If you need help with your business, then please reach out. Yeah, so the email address is mattchivers@wento.co.uk. If you've sat through the last hour and a half and thinking, I can't bear to hear that bloke talk for any longer, then it's not just me here. We have a team of people with different types of approaches, different types of experiences. The rest of them are much more professional than me. So if you just want to reach out to Wento, and it may be that you want to talk to someone else, you want to get some advice on setting up a business in a different way, reach out. We're a charity. Our business is free of charge. You can have as much or as little support as you need. Yeah. What you will also find if you check out the website is that when you start your business, there will be loads of deals there. So loads of money saving deals. So whether it's on kind of payment systems, whether it's on insurance, we have gone out and negotiated discounts on your behalf, where you can go onto the Wento website if you need it and contact these companies, and you will receive discounts against the services. So please use that. Please come along and watch other webinars. Please make contact with me if you want one-to-one support. Thank you for your attention today. Sorry I've sped up probably the last little bit, but you will get this presentation, and I'm happy to go into a bit more detail about anything else that you need. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully I'll either see you on a one-to-one or back here with another webinar.